Okay, so hi guys. Welcome to another episode of Starting 101. This is episode number 9. Can't wait. I'm about to hit 10. Gonna be very excited about that. Small wins, right? So this show is about taking everything that I've learned and starting from scratch and kind of like documenting the journey of saying, you know what, I got these products or I've built these things and I've kind of like acquired these businesses, and now I'm sitting in a place where I feel like it's a collection of products and projects, but not really a business. And so I'm taking it and building it from the ground up from scratch. And so that's really what this project is about. If you want to follow along, I know these are pretty much kind of like old school vlog style. So I come on here at the end of the day. I might try to shift these into the morning, turn on the camera and kind of talk about where I am in the process. So far, if you've kind of like missed the earlier episodes, it's kind of like starting with kind of like setting the intention and saying, you know what, this is something that I want to start and making that commitment to that. And then going through the process of, you know what, how do I want this to be? What are my constraints? What are my boundaries? How do I want to make it happen? And then taking that and going forward. So today specifically, though, we are going to be talking numbers, right? Setting targets, setting a goal, and having something that focuses you so that you can have like real constraints and saying like where are you trying to go. So I'll kind of go over the process that I used to make sure, I guess, that my goals were not too small and but still also showing how specific I got so that you could see exactly um what the end result is of actually going through the exercise of setting that goal. Because, still at the moment, I still don't know what I'm going to make yet, but I do know I want it to be something that helps me to reach. Like, the only goal post for a business is pretty much like the only scorecard is how much money you're making. Like, if it's a business, that's the score. It's supposed to make money. So coming up with what those targets are almost determines, how big of a business or like what's the upper limits of how I'm envisioning this, right? What do I want that to be? And so I'll go over those numbers and kind of share that. But if you've been following along or you're just kind of like looking at these in the past, where the project is at right now, I've been more or less thinking through the early stages, and um, typically I actually have a process that goes through, and you can go from mapping out your idea. It's called an intent framework. It's one of the things that, one of those things that I've built that is helping people. Like for the people that signed up for it and used it, they liked it. But in 5 days, and it's something you could sit down and do in 1 hour, but it's like dripped out over a course of 5 days. But in 5 days, you can sit and say, I have a vague inclination of an idea, and I'm going to take that, run through these systematic processes, ask these questions, boom, 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 and I get to the outcome. Because that's my superpower, is that being able to say, if we know what the outcome is and we know what matters, then we can come up with a strategy that helps you to get there in a simple way, even if it's not easy, but in a simple way and in a quick way. And so I'm taking that same mind frame to this entire exercise. It just happens to be that I'm basically throttling my progress and slowing it down by doing it at a pace where I can share exactly where I'm at so that I can essentially capture the journey in real time and go through all the thought process here with you guys. So at this stage, we're at goals. And the goals are, I think goal setting is kind of something that hit or miss. It depends on how you like it. You might love goal setting or you might have a love-hate relationship with it, because I think sometimes it ends up weighing on people. So if you look at that, I think a lot of people approach goals in such a way that they don't have an easy way to reach that goal, because they just grab this pie in the sky thing, they put it out there and they say, okay, this is going to be my goal. And that's it. And then you sit down and you're looking at it and saying, all right, You've come up with your idea for your goal. How do you walk that back to something like from where you are right now? Or how do you make it so that even the thought of looking at the goal doesn't overwhelm you to the point where it actually like demotivates you? Because there's a lot of like self work that goes into that. But that's the stage, you know, that I was at. And today I was giving some thoughts to that and saying, you know what, let's put some numbers around this so they're like concrete objectives to hit. And so that way I can actually measure, is this working or not? Because as I'm approaching this, the only thing I know is my outcome, right? And the outcome is a business that is running as a component part of systems so that it's self-sustaining. So I know what the inputs are, I know what the outputs are, and that output is measurable and the inputs is measurable, and I can say, yes, this experiment succeeded or it failed, so that I can move on to the next one. I mean, I've given myself some leeway. I'm hoping that by day 101, I'm reporting on how the business is succeeding and not on like my 50th experiment. But I'm open to that idea as well, because that's the whole thing, is going through the journey and actually like showing what that's like. So today I spent some time and I kind of like went through this exercise, and I'll share with you guys exactly like how I kind of go about setting goals, as at least when it relates to something like this that's measurable. Because anytime that you have something that's big and seemingly daunting, you have to find a way to walk it back. You have to find a way to know like what's the tangible outcome you want, but then you also have to find a way to give it constraints and then walk it all the way back. Excuse me. So essentially today I looked at numbers, and I'll share some of those numbers with you. And these numbers are, I mean, looking at it, even for me, when I start looking at the top numbers, like they're pretty big and they seem a little bit daunting. But I think that I wanted this to be something that guides guides how much value I want to deliver, right? Because that's where I want this to be at. I want to be able to say that, you know what, whatever I put out there is, if it's something that's charging $1, then well, I just put out $1 worth of value. And if it's something that I can charge more for it, then it's because it's putting out that much value. And there are a few people that have this idea of a 10x rule. And so a 10x rule is kind of like, say, if you know that something that you're putting out is going to be $1,000 worth of value to somebody's business, then you can charge $100 for it, right? So that way there's so much upside for them that it would be a no-brainer for them to give you the $100. And it's like, you are a multiplier for them at a fraction of the benefit that they stand to get. So that's kind of like the thought process. But with that said, let me kind of like share my numbers with you, at least the way that I'm thinking about it. So the way I went through this goal setting exercise was kind of different, right? Because I'm looking at this one business that's going to come out of this Starting 101 project, at least the first one, as an exercise, and saying, if that was by itself, and I kind of like look out into the future, right? 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, and say, okay, how much money would I want this to be making? Right. And so to keep it in the realm of like reality for me, I also look at, in the last 20 years, right? I'm in my 30s now. So if I go from in the last 20 years to what I make now and look at what that trajectory was like, and then I say, if I actually go and produce the same amount of value and stay on the same trajectory, where would I be in another 20 years? That was my thought process, if I'm growing year over year. And so with that thought process, I looked at it and said, you know what? If I looked at it up to 20 years, I would like this business to be making $12 million a year. So $12 million a year basically means it's making essentially $1 million a month. And that's the goal. Now, looking at that sounds like a big number to me, because I don't know what exactly that, I actually do know the breakdown to get there, but it seems far away. So I walk my way back and say, okay, given that, if I broke it down into 5-year chunks, right, then where would I have to be if I did it in even 5-year chunks? Where would it have to be? And so I break that down. So in 5 years, it means that my business would have to be at 3 million a year. Like, all right, cool. So take that again, 5 years, break it down and divide it again and say, if I did that in 5-year chunks, even 5-year chunks, then my business would have to be at 600K in a year, right? So 600K is the number. So if I take from 20 million and walk it all the way back, assuming the same progressive increments, then that means 12 million in 20 years. In 5-year increments, that would mean 3 million every 5 years. And then like breaking that down, making 3 million by 5 years essentially. And then breaking that down and saying, okay, if I'm growing to that over a 5-year period of time, where do I have to be if I break that down over 5 years? And that takes you down to 600,000. So now if you take that and say, okay, let's break that down into months. Well, okay, so that's 50,000 a month. And okay, so breaking 50,000 a month, let's break that down into days, and that's $1,463.84 a day in revenue, essentially. So if you're looking at $1,463.84 a day in revenue, it means there's a fixed amount of things you could sell in order to meet that number. So that breaks back down to that, and you say, okay, cool. If I sold 10 items at $147 a day, that would put me at essentially $1,470, which is actually a little bit over that mark. If I sold 20 items at $73.50, it would put me at about the same ballpark. 31 items at $47 and 22 items at $67. So basically what that breaks down to is what I have is that if I am able to make, starting from 10 sales, so anywhere from 10 to 22 sales, actually no, 10 to 30 sales a day, with a product that's within the price range of $47 to $147, then I will meet that target. And that's pretty much it. So it's like, it's a clear goal of saying, all right, depending on what product I come up with and how I package it and how much value it's able to have. Because I mean, this is like, there's a simpler process to this as well, which is I could sell one product for $1,463 and I just have to sell one a day. Or I could double that price and I only have to sell one every other day. But knowing that there's at least like a tangible daily number to hit in like the 1 year goal, then that means that I know that the first step then is, how do I get to 1 sale a day, with the target being to get to 10 sales a day, knowing that ultimately I have to get to 33 sales a day, or tweak that number so that I'm offering something that can be sold at a price that the market is willing to actually accept, but that is also offering enough value that it's a 10x type of value. So that's kind of like where it's at, and that'll probably like determine, where I shift as I have to go do some research and see like what will people need and what are people like, where can I take my superpower, right, of being able to kind of like strategize and get to outcomes quickly. Where can I take that superpower and apply it for people in such a way that the outcome is valuable enough that they would pay something in this range for me to meet this number? So it's very much like walking my way back from the end vision and saying, okay, cool, if I can hit that benchmark, then I can hit the next benchmark and I can hit the next benchmark. and then adjust and grow from there. So that's the constraint on my numbers now, is that whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm selling has to be something that has the potential to be able to be marketed and sold at a rate that brings in essentially $1,400 to $1,500 a day. So that's where it's at with the numbers. I don't know where you're at in your business at the moment, or if you're following along or fleshing out your idea. But the thing is, you need a benchmark. You need a way to measure your success, and you need a way to walk it forward so that you're just not like, oh man, I'm not at $600,000, so it's a failure. But you also have to look at it and say, okay, cool. What do I have to actually show up and do? Right? It's not enough to know that it's a journey of 1,000 miles. You also have to know that you have to take steps. And so it's about the steps that you're going to take. So looking at, and that's the thing, you don't have to look that far out. You might just look at like, how many people do I want to like serve? Right? If I could have shifted my focus, if I wasn't using money as my metric, and I could have said, I want to get 100 people on my email list. And that's the objective, and that's it. And it's like, okay, how many resources do I have to apply to that? And what am I able to do in order to like make that happen? Or I could have said I wanted to get 1,000 people on my email list. Or I could have picked any other metric, right? Traffic numbers could have been a metric, but I'm choosing dollars as a metric here. But by choosing dollars, I'm also walking it back and giving myself the grace that I want to make it so that I have a system that generates enough sales. So I really want to make sales numbers my benchmark as opposed to the actual like end number. So it's like, all right, cool. We sold 10 units today. We're on track. Or we're selling 5 units day over day over day. It might be time to raise prices if this is going to work, or rework the marketing. So that's the thought process. But I'm definitely like loving this experience actually, and I think this is going to be fun. I'm hoping that there is enough visibility, and I'm not like leaving anything in the thought process as I'm mulling it over. I'm kind of like putting it all out here, so you see how I'm going through that process. I know I covered the fact that I'm deeply focused and studying on, what is it going to actually take to market this thing, and what is it going to take to sell this thing. I think that was last episode, so check that out. Um, but I think now you can see, kind of like starting off soft. I have an idea, focusing on, what's the engine that it's going to take, what's the shape that it's going to take, and then looking at like, what are my reasons for it? And then now it's like I have constraints and targets. So with my targets in place, 10 to 30 sales numbers means I have an arc for growth. So that's the arc that I'm going to follow for growth, and then go forward there. But I think so far it's forming well. I'm definitely going to do some research and kind of like share with you guys in the next couple of episodes exactly what I'm finding, what the problem is in the space, and what are some big wins that I know that align with what I know I can do, and then take that and share it and turn it into something that can multiply value for other people. And by the way, if you do want to check out that the course, it's a 5-day course. I have it on my site right now, or you can just go directly to it. So if you go to jpadamsonline.com, then you can click in, and it's basically like the 5-day project clarity course, and it just takes you through like, what is your idea, and it walks you all the way to an outcome. So in 5 days, you go from nothing or a vague idea to a very clear idea. So check that out and see if you get the same kind of results, because I think that it's something that allows you to move through an idea fairly quickly. But I didn't want to use it for this because I wanted to go through this process of showing like, if you're starting from scratch, how are you starting? So that's how I'm doing it. This is episode 9 of Starting 101. I thank you guys for the few people that have actually like checked out these episodes. And that's it for today. We have our numbers. We have some targets we'll have to refine and make it more clear, but we have the constraints. and we'll keep trucking on forward, and I'll keep sharing it on here. See you tomorrow. Bye.